Hey guys, it's Ben the Coin Geek at Old Pueblo Coin, and I'm super excited to share with you today this video about Barber halves. No, I'm not just doing a magic trick. Look at all the Barber halves I pull out of one. I actually have a little stack of Barber halves here, and what I'm excited about is not that we're looking for rare dates, but that we get an opportunity to talk about grading, some basic grading stuff when it comes to Barber halves, and I'm going to reference a whole bunch back and forth to a book that I recommend everyone find, the official A&A grading guide. And I like the old school one with the line drawings. For me, this is the most helpful thing. There are newer ones with pictures in them that are, photographs. I really prefer the line drawings. They help me to understand what I'm looking at better. And this is going to vary for each and every one of you. I know some of you will probably really prefer the photos. The descriptions in the modern books are almost identical to these. In fact, some of this verbiage you'll find in the gray sheet, right, from good to VG. One of the things that is interesting about the Barber halves is technically you don't need to have a full rim to get to a full good on these coins, but you'll see this picture of the good 4 does have that. The Liberty's completely gone, the Eagle's worn flat. Basically, there's no design elements. And once you get down to below good, you just have slight outlines of things on the coin, right? And then you have a lot of the legend is gone. So when we go forward in grade up here to the VG, you're going to be looking at coins that have just a little bit more detail. You look at the difference between the wreath up in the hair, and you see a little bit more of the eye. You see how details just starts to appear on the coin in VG. Now fine gets tricky. We get up to fine, and all of a sudden it starts to look like, well, the Lady Liberty actually has some design to it. All right. They want to be able to see most all of the Liberty. They say all letters in Liberty are weak but visible. So I like to caution people that's not always the case, but this is the guidelines that they have here. One of the things that you'll definitely see though is that you start to see a lot of detail in the ear and the jawline versus the VG. And then on the back, on the Eagle, you want to start to look at the difference in a lot of the little details also. The Eagle's wings, you'll see there's almost no details in the Eagle wings, and now you move it into a lot of detail in the Eagle's wings. The E pluribus unum isn't really legible in here. They want it to be mostly all legible. So we're going to take a look at these coins and see if we can't go ahead and distinguish a little bit between coins that are AG, good, VG, and maybe we'll even find a fine in here. So let's take a look first with this one on top, which we're not paying too much attention to whether coins are cleaned or not, but if you want a quick eyeball test between cleaned and not cleaned, generally speaking, this coin on the right is going to get called cleaned if you went in to get it graded. All right, and okay, we're just jumping ahead of ourselves here, but you'll see how different in detail you can get. So one of the things, even if you don't have a grading book handy, but if you have access to a pile of coins that are the same, so maybe you inherited a collection and you're just trying to learn a little bit about coins right now and you don't know where to start, you can, if you learn to pay a little bit of attention to what the details on these coins look like, you can do this. You can just say, okay, this coin has so much detail to it, and I want to compare it to this coin, and which coin has more detail? Okay, this coin has more detail on the right. So there's a process of elimination that you can go through with any coins to decide which one has more detail to it. This or that, which one would you rather have, right? Now I haven't done that with these coins to each other yet. I'm doing it 2 by 2, which is actually not really the best way to do it. But you can see we're starting to categorize things a little bit more by the amount of detail that they have in them. And then after that, after you get a general sense for how much detail you're seeing, and of course right now I'm only looking at the front of the coins. We'll look at the back of the coins, the reverse of the coin pretty soon. But this is where you start, parsing a little bit from one grade to the next. And we'll get a little bit closer up to see some of the finer details in just a moment. But let's start with these coins on the left, which were the ones that looked like they had the most wear. You'll see you've got the design elements, and this is where grading gets tricky because you'll see the wear down into the rim on those coins, and then on this there's actually a decent amount of detail in the ear still and the eye, even though the rim is gone. Okay, so that's one of the things that makes grading difficult, is because coins don't all wear the same. They didn't all start the same. They don't all wear the same. Those coins, both these coins here that we look at, are pretty comparable. You really start to lose some detail back here in the rim on this coin. And both these coins are going to be something that's going to be right about that AG3 marker. I will say this has a really solid full rim on the front on the obverse versus this one. I would put this 1907 at a higher grade overall than the 1911. And what's interesting is, if you only looked at the design elements on the body of the coin, the center part, this 1911 has detail still in the ears and stuff, but the rim is flat on both sides. And I would call this definitely an AG3. This is probably an AG3.5. If we were doing half grades, I know, we don't do half grades. Now I'm just being ridiculous. Now let's start looking at these a little bit closer. When you start to see a little bit more detail on the coin, look at the wings in the eagle and the E pluribus unum in the ribbon, and you start to see just a little bit more detail in there. You can start to make out the E pluribus unum. In the good grades, you have both good 4 and good 6 that you get to look at. And then once you get into the VG grades, technically you've got a VG8 and a VG10. There isn't really any other in-between grades the way the coin grading system is currently structured. What's interesting about these two coins here is that you start to see the jawline, but it's that Liberty where you start to really want to start to see details popping up to get to the next grade level. How much in the cap can you see any of the Liberty? And on these two coins, the answer is pretty much just no. And let's look closer at the reverse of the coins and see if we can make out that ribbon with the E pluribus unum. How much detail is there? Right. So if we take a close-up here of these two coins, you can start to see just how flat this coin is on the right compared to this one on the left. And it's just minor. And once again, we're just talking about coins that are pretty comparable in grade. You can see this one starts to lose a little bit of detail in the rim. So easier to get to your kind of good 4 grade on a coin like that. And if you prefer this coin just a hair, maybe that gets to the good 6 level. Whereas this one, you can start to see again, once you look at a bunch of them, you just start to get into a groove a little bit. Maybe this is more like that good 4. But the thing is, they wear so inconsistently, there are going to be differences between the coins that you look at. Let's see if we can find something that I think is going to be a solid VG. In these coins, Barbers are notorious for being really hard to get in very fine grade and even fine grade. So this 1910, you start to see all the detail on that wreath, and then you start to see the Liberty, L-I-B-E-R-T. Now this is when you're doing the eyeball test. Technically, I can see the letters in Liberty. I mean, from here you don't really see them. I want to compare this to these ones that I was calling just a lower, like a VG. And if I can get a coin that I think is going to go, pardon me, I was calling more of like a good 6. If I can get one to go just like 1 grade up. And see the difference in the jawline? It gets a little bit more bold. The eye socket gets a little more bold. So there's little details that just continue to creep up on you. All of those, the ribbon area, the wreath area, you can simply see more of the leaves. And we'll probably see something pretty comparable on the reverse of the coins as you look at both of them. you should start to see pretty strong E pluribus unum. Let's see, we've got some lines in the shield, and you've got some feathers popping up on the eagle. And then here, look at the shield. You still have some lines, and you can see how many more lines are there from one coin to the next, right? So it's that little detail. And then the feathers, there's also the feathers a little bit more flat on the coin on the right, and the E pluribus unum, pretty strong. Here, it's just a little bit weaker. You know, some of those letters are starting to fall away, fade away on us. So maybe we're going to get that coin into that good 6 and that more into like the VG8 category. I don't know that we're going to find one that I'd really call a full fine. And it's tricky because some of these coins, let me see if I can find something that I think has enough more detail, because that's how grammar works. That's going to put us up into the fine condition. And so after we zoomed in, now that we zoom back out, maybe your eye starts to see those things more naturally. At this point, maybe you're seeing those shield lines just kind of be there that you didn't see before. And we didn't talk a lot about the lettering, but there is the difference in the strength of lettering also, of course. But the lettering is because those surfaces are pretty flat, where you're going to see detail is going to be how raised up they are, right? And you can also see the difference actually in the way the lettering was done over the years as they switched the word half is much taller on this coin. That's going to be your, what is that, a 15 versus a 1900. And all the lettering, even the dates look bigger. I know I'm upside down, don't criticize. The lettering looks bigger also in the 1915 over the 1900. So I don't think we're going to get anything in here that's going to be get to the full fine grade, but you just want a little bit more detail in those wings. You do want that Liberty to be a little bit stronger, but we do have good examples of everywhere from about an AG3 to a VG8, and you can see that the differences are sometimes pretty subtle, but once you get to see the differences and know the differences, it becomes more obvious over time, especially the more you practice this. So this is true even if you don't have a book and you just have coins and you've never graded before. You can take coins, if you got a bunch of Indian head pennies that you found, and you can go ahead and go through them and start to sort them this way, one from another, and get a feel for what the different coins look like. Of course, as always, I do recommend getting a book, especially like this A&A book. You can find them on eBay usually for pretty cheap, the old ones from the 70s. So anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. I'm Ben the Coin Geek. You can subscribe by clicking on the button in the corner and watch more videos on the right side of the screen. Thanks.